Hello YouTube divers, this is WaterDive 122 and I want to welcome you all to another episode of Magic Metal Mondays. So today we are back here with another album ranking here for you guys today. Finally, it finally took less than a year for me to actually come up with a album ranking. So today we are going to be tackling one of the most controversial bands to have ever set foot and record in the studio. They are basically a band who are part of a genre that going into this discography, I was not really that fond of. Like, it was very graphic, it was a little bit over the top, and it was just not for me. But this band might have very well changed it. Today we are talking about the most popular American death metal band out there. We're talking about the one, the only, Cannibal Corpse. So, viewer discretion is advised, unless if you are a hardcore metal fan and you love death metal and you love bands like Death, Morbid Angel, Obituary, Cannibal Corpse for that matter. I would basically recommend you not watch this video because there are going to be some controversial album and or song titles. I have censored. I won't mention some of the more controversial stuff on here, so it'll be pretty straightforward. But these songs and albums do contain some controversies here and there. I mean, if you know Cannibal Corpse, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But we're not here to get into that. We're here to talk some frickin' Cannibal Corpse. So let's go ahead and do this, shall we? And also, there might be a few hot takes on this list. So bear with me. This will also be a two-part episode. So Cannibal Corpse has 15 records. We'll be going through numbers 15 through 8 on this video. And then in part 2, we'll tackle the rest of the albums from number 7 to number 1. Alright, here we go. So before I reveal my bottom pick, all of these albums are good. Like, Cannibal Corpse has an absolutely flawless discography. Like, their weakest album is an 8 out of 10. That's how good these guys are. But I say that because at the bottom of the barrel here, well, if you can even call it that, number 15 is their debut album, 1990's Eaten Back to Life. So this album is good. It's a great record. It's a really good debut album. I usually give debut albums a little bit of flack, but I'm willing to give this one a pass. Even though it is low, even though it's at the bottom of the list, it's still a great record. It's a great record on its own, but when you throw it against every single other Cannibal Corpse record, this one is the one I enjoyed the least. But that said, there are some fantastic moments on here. This is Shredded Humans is a great song, really great way to open up a record, if you ask me. Then you have classics like Born in a Casket and A Skull Full of Maggots. Two fantastic songs that are staples in the Cannibal Corpse catalog. And two of my other favorite tracks on here are Bloody Chunks and Edible Autopsy, the latter of which boasts some of the tastiest riffs in all of Cannibal Corpse. And there's also Mangled, which is, in my opinion, one of Chris Barnes' strongest performances, not only on this record, but in his whole era of Cannibal Corpse. But really, this album, it's more thrashy than death metal, and that's basically the main gripe that I've seen a lot of people give this record. But overall, it's a really good listen, and it's a really good starter if you're just getting into Cannibal Corpse. Like, it's really good. I mean, it's the first record. It's freaking awesome. Definitely recommend it to some new death metal fans. Okay, and then number 14, we have the 1996 album Vile. So this was the first record to feature current Cannibal Corpse singer George Fisher, also known commercially as Corpse Grinder. And in my opinion, he is a way better vocalist than Chris Barnes. Chris Barnes definitely had some great moments on the first 4 Cannibal Corpse records, but Corpse Grinder just is absolutely on fire. Like, he fits the Cannibal Corpse sound and style really, really freaking well. And Vile is a really great start. I basically feel the same about this record as I do with Eaten Back to Life. Perverse Suffering is a really great song. Disfigured is a great song. Mummified and Barbed Wire is a really good one. And Devoured by Vermin. Those are my favorite tracks from the record. They all have some tasty riffs on them and a really good production setup by Mr. Scott Burns, a legendary metal producer. Yeah, this record is really good. But my only gripe with it is that I feel like it kind of drags on a little bit too long, and Corpse Grinder being his first full-length album with the band, especially coming off of a great album like The Bleeding, it's a little bit of a step down in quality and really in songwriting for that matter, because Chris Barnes was responsible for a lot of the band's songwriting, if not all of the band's songwriting for that matter, or at least from a lyric perspective. But I really like the band's songwriting in this era, but here I just don't feel like, I feel like that they just don't quite have it yet. They get better as it goes on, which is most of the cases when a band has a new singer or a new guitarist or whatever, a new songwriter, you know what I mean. Okay, so with that said, number 14 is Vile. Number 13 is Gore Obsessed from 2002. This is a killer album. This really marks the beginning of an era for Cannibal Corpse. Not only is it the first album they released in the 21st century, but I feel like this is where the modern Cannibal Corpse really begins to shine. If the previous album, Bloodthirst, didn't already do that, Gore Obsessed absolutely did. This album is absolutely crazy. There are fast rhythms, there are brutal vocals from Corpse Grinder. The band is pretty much in a tight format here. It's a really great experience. The first three tracks in particular, Savage Butchery, Hatchet to the Head, and Pit of Zombies, arguably some of the best opening three songs from any record I have ever heard. I just gotta be frank with y'all. These songs are absolutely insane, especially Savage Butchery, which is probably my favorite song on the record. It's really great. Sanded, and my other two favorite songs on the record are Sanded Faceless and Grotesque. Both these songs have some really nice chunky riffs and insane guitar solos by, I believe it was Rob Barrett and Pat O'Brien on the guitars. Really underrated guitar duo, if you ask me. But, yeah, it's great stuff. Number 12, we got Red Before Black from 2017. Their second to most recent record. This album is very interesting. It's got some really great songs on it, but really this album kind of lacks in memorability in most areas. I mean, the title track, Red Before Black, is a great one. Remaimed is a great one. In the Midst of Ruin is great. Code of Slashes, Only One Will Die, and Firestorm Vengeance are my favorite tracks from the record. That's basically half the album. The other half is good. They just kind of lack in memorability a little bit. But overall, this record is really, really solid. What more do you want me to say? It's just classic modern day Cannibal Corpse. And if you're a hardcore death metal fan, you love it. Okay, and now moving on to number 11, to all of my hardcore metal fans out there. This one might be a little bit controversial, but it's my list, so screw it. Number 11, I have the 1991 classic death metal album, Butchered at Birth. This record is crazy. This record is crazy. This record is brutal. This record is just Cannibal Corpse being Cannibal Corpse. Really, this album really captures that sound, that death metal sound that Cannibal Corpse got famous for. It is a huge improvement over Eaten Back to Life. And that's saying something, because Eaten Back to Life, as I said earlier, was a fantastic record. But Butcher to Birth takes it to a whole new level. Meat Hook Sodomy and Gutted. What a 1-2 punch to open up a frickin' record, if you ask me. It's fantastic. Both songs are great. Both songs are classics. Like, if you claim to be a death metal fan, you haven't listened to those two songs, let alone this whole album, you got some homework to do, my friend. Vomit the Soul is also great. The title track is fantastic as well. And Under the Rotted Flesh, also a fantastic one at that. Really, this whole album is jam-packed with some juicy guitar riffs and juicy drum beats. And, of course, Chris Barnes, easily one of his best vocal performances. It's a tie between this and the Bleeding for his best vocal performance, but I'll touch on that in part 2. Needless to say, Butcher to Birth, classic record, and it's an essential listen if you're getting into death metal. Really, this is a classic record. I just like other albums a little bit more. So with that said, Butcher to Birth coming in here at number 11. Number 10, we got the 1998 album Gallery of Suicide. This record marks the beginning of an era for Cannibal Corpse. This marks the time where they get very, very technical. Like, the guitars are tuned way down low, and they're using different time signatures. They're using different tempo changes. They're using they're basically using more variety within their songs. And honestly, that is just freaking amazing, if you ask me. Like, every way, shape, and form. This album is packed with progressive-like moments. Like, really, I wouldn't be surprised if this was one of the records that heavily inspired the tech death subgenre, which really I'd really like to see more of. But there are amazing songs all across this record. The opening track, I Will Kill You, is a fantastic number. Gallery of Suicide, the title track, is absolutely fantastic. It's a really slow song. I think it's one of those songs that kind of kick-started the influence of Death Doom, another death metal subgenre. Sentenced to Burn is also a really good one as well. The instrumental track from Skin to Liquid, also a really fun number. And Chambers of Blood, another staple from this record. Really, this album, in every way, shape, and form, is just absolutely fantastic. It's a huge improvement over Vile. A huge improvement. Cannot emphasize it any more than that. But with that said, number 10 goes to Gallery of Suicide. So let's move on to number 9. Number 9, the album Kill from 2006. Okay, so, what a brutal record this is right here, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, every way, shape, and form. If you look at it from top to bottom, and if you listen to it, oh my god, you are in for a treat if you like death metal. Okay, so, obviously the big hit, Make Them Suffer, is on this record. It's a good song. The Time to Kill Is Now is one of the best openers in Cannibal Corpse's discography, if you ask me. Murder Warship is great. Purification by Fire is amazing. Submerged in Boiling Flesh and Infinite Misery are all my favorite tracks on this record. This really marks the beginning of... This really sees Cannibal Corpse embracing their modern sound a lot. The previous two records, Gore Obsessed and The Wretched Spawn, both had elements of the modern Cannibal Corpse era. Gore Obsessed mainly showed the technicality. The Wretched Spawn had the production standpoint, and Kill is a perfect marriage between both of those album strengths. And really, you can make the argument that this was the beginning of an unbelievable ride that Cannibal Corpse is on. And are currently on to this present day. They're still touring, and they're still around. They're still making kick-butt death metal material. And if they release a new album within the coming years, you know I'll be looking forward to it. So with that said, Kill from 2006 coming in here at number 9. Number 8, speaking of modern day material, number 8 is the 2021 album Violence Unimagined. So, I've already talked a little bit about this record when I did my top 10 albums of 2021 video. If you want to go check that out, that's cool. This was a top 5 record from 2021, in my opinion, and I re-listened to it for the purpose of this video, for this ranking, and it has aged very, very well. It was really nice. It was really refreshing to go back and re-listen to this record, because this was the first Cannibal Corpse album that I ever listened to in full, because I was preparing for the my end of the year list from last year. And it's a great record. Murderous Rampage and Inhumane Harvest are 2 absolute bangers off this record. Then you also have songs like Follow the Blood, Surround, Kill, Devour, and Cerements of the Flayed, which are both amazing songs in their own right, and I'd highly recommend them to any newcomer death metal fan. And like I said with Eaten Back to Life, if you're just getting into death metal, and for Cannibal Corpse for that matter, honestly, Violence Unimagined is not a bad place to start. It has the technicality, it has the brutality, it just has all the elements you could want in a Cannibal Corpse record. It's Cannibal Corpse being Cannibal Corpse. What more do you want me to say? So yeah, with that said, Violence Unimagined comes here at number 8. So with that said, that concludes this half of the Cannibal Corpse rankings. We will move on to part 2, where we will discuss number 7 to number 1. So with that said, thank you so much for watching, my fellow YouTube divers. This is WaterDive 122 signing out, ready to dive into more fun on YouTube. Thanks for watching.